There are growing concerns from students in universities which leads to protests over student accommodation crisis, fee blocks, financial exclusion, as well as issues around the National Student Financial Aid Scheme allowances, as students are always faced with these challenges. Let's unpack this with Hendrick Makaneta, who's an educational activist. Hendrick, a pleasure to have you on the program this evening. Now, before we get into these recent and worrying scenes at various campuses, let's look at the broader issue. It would seem that the problems around admissions, accommodations, and NSFAS as well are never-ending issues. What is your assessment of these issues?
Well, to be quite honest, my assessment of these issues is that there is lack of commitment on the side of, government to come up with a political will to resolve these problems once and for all. You are correct, because these are recurring problems which are well known, that every year students are unable to register and, they have to rely on protests, and in some cases there are many who are excluded. And so the issue of student debt remains a problem, and that is why we have agreed that government alone will not be able to resolve it. And so they need to really work with the private sector to come up with ways and means of funding the universities with a view to eradicate the student debt.
Now, more recently, there have been protests at the University of the Western Cape as well as the University of Cape Town with regard to registration of students, these fee blocks and the lack of student accommodation. And now claims have also emerged in video footage purportedly showing students being pepper sprayed by the pro-event security company. What can you tell us about this situation? I mean, it doesn't sound like a situation that is tenable there.
Universities must find a way to engage with students. We know that there is a tendency of some of the professors who believe that they know better than the students, and therefore they are unwilling to continuously engage with the students on the table. We think that calling security, to pepper spray students, should not be something that universities must do, but also some institutions which call police into campuses. We think that that should be the last resort when, everything else failed. But professors need to understand that the student leaders are also, the future leaders, and they've got a duty to speak on behalf of the student population. And at this point, the right to learn is very central. We think that, the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Blade Nzimande, should step into the terrain with a view to, resolve this issue before it is too late.
Now, these protests take place amid this confirmation from UCT that an independent panel would be put together to also investigate some of these claims. Do you have any confidence in these kind of processes that yield any positive results?
Well, they don't always yield positive results. I think that universities have got a way of putting, talk shows. But the fundamental issue is that students need accommodation, and student accommodation, as we may know, is very expensive. And, many students, particularly those who come from, middle-class families or the so-called missing middle, they're not always able to afford, since banks as well are not able to give them loans. And we are saying that it cannot be correct that a student who is about to complete, say, for instance, an LLB degree is just left on his or her own to join the long queue of unemployment in the country. We've got a duty to assist. Students, need not only funding, but they need ongoing support. And universities must be able to support the students until they complete their studies.
And in extension to that, I mean, these are issues that the SRC has been dealing with for weeks before the start of the academic year, after the Students' Housing Department's decision to also withdraw accommodation offers from students with fee blocks. Do you think the institution should have been better prepared for this?
Institutions of higher learning knew. In January this year, we made a call to the office of the minister, whereby we appealed to the minister to issue a directive to institutions of higher learning with a view to stop, exclusions of all forms. Where we spoke about academic as well as financial exclusions. And it is really discouraging that at this point we still have institutions which are not able to come to the party to resolve these issues that are faced by students. We all know that it will be difficult for, especially students who come from outside provinces. It will be very difficult for them to complete their studies if they are not accommodated in a conducive environment for learning and teaching. We really think that the minister should come on board and call the all VCs of all the 26 universities in the country, because this is not only a matter that affects Western Cape or UCT alone. We believe that other institutions as well should be assisted. We want our students to study and be able to complete their degrees.
What is the role of SRC bodies to actually assist students with some of these issues that they face, such as getting accommodation or issues surrounding registration? Well,
SRCs have got a role to play, of course. We have seen in the past some of the SRCs raising funds as well. And we think that, they should be afforded the space to also raise money. But if you look at nowadays, unlike in the past 4 years, the economy of our country is not doing that well. And so most SRCs are unable to raise the required amount which can be able to bail out students. It is for this reason that we believe that university councils should also step in and try and deal with this issue of debt, which affect mainly students who come from poor communities.
That was education activist Hendrick Makaneta, of course, speaking to us about those worrying scenes that have played out at various universities around the country.